the Romans had it all figured out. Extravagant parties, stylish executions, hardcore orgies, and of course, the Colosseum, one of the best game shows of the time. There have been many games exploring the alluring brutality of gladiatorial combat, but one of them manages to combine it with the political intrigue of the time. Shadow of Rome, developed and published by Capcom for the PS2 back in 2005. Even though the game tried to create its own franchise, it ultimately failed and became one of the lesser-known PS2 titles, which is a shame since this is a pretty solid action-adventure game with Capcom's seal of quality. Why did it fly under the radar then? Let's find out. Shadow of Rome is a pretty story-driven game, which basically means a lot of cutscenes, not a lot of gameplay, and it's gonna take a while before you get to the good part. But what about the story? Is it any good at least? Well, remember Ridley Scott's Gladiator with Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix? Yeah, that's pretty much the plot of the game. To be fair, it's not an exact copy, but all the main story beats are the same. The story focuses on two characters, Agrippa, a Roman centurion who definitely doesn't take steroids, and Octavianus, who is Julius Caesar's nephew and looks like a bit of a dandy. Their lives change when the emperor is murdered by an unknown assailant. Unfortunately, Agrippa's father Vipsanius is accused of a murder and his mother Vipsania is publicly executed. Why do they both have the same name? Beats me. Anyway, the Senate decides to host a season of gladiatorial games and the winner will be the one executing Vipsanius for the enjoyment of the people. Without much choice left, Agrippa forsakes his former life as a soldier and becomes a gladiator, hoping to save his father. Meanwhile, Octavianus tries to uncover the plot behind Caesar's assassination and clear his friend's name using stealth and deception. Oof, that was a lot of stuff to get through, and the game sure takes its sweet time progressing the plot, either with multiple lengthy cutscenes or even walls of text between gameplay segments. Sure, the story is derivative as hell, but its high production values really help in developing intrigue and suspense regarding what is gonna happen next. The fact that we have two different characters, each with their own perspective, trying to figure things out in parallel, also helps keeping the plot fresh and deeper than it actually is. Anyway, eventually the intro cutscene ends and the time comes for us to experience the gameplay. Let's see how it holds up. Shadow of Rome's tutorial is explosive to say the least, throwing you right into the action. You better cherish that moment because it's gonna take you at least 3 hours to see the arena again. Anyway, melee combat with Agrippa is one of the game's main features, and it's surprisingly deep for your standard third-person action-adventure title. You have your main hand, which can hold weapons like swords and axes, allowing you to do basic free-hit combos and charge attacks. You also have your secondary hand, which can hold shields and small weapons like daggers, allowing you to block attacks, bash, and strike enemies. Besides the small weapons, you have ridiculously huge two-handed weapons like maces, spears, and scythes to completely obliterate your foes, and bows to cowardly snipe them. And that's not all, you can fight with your fists, shoulder tackle your enemies, steal their weapons, and even suplex them WWE style. There is just so much you can do and it's all delightfully brutal, with blood constantly spraying and body parts flying everywhere, which can also be used as weapons. Imagine beating someone up with his own arm that you just cut off. Finally, I can recreate my favorite scene from my favorite movie. And it's important that you are as brutal and gory as possible, because your performance is being graded by the crowd itself. Keep them entertained with flashy moves and violent finishers and they will reward you with health items and powerful weapons. Imagine going to the stadium to watch the game with a giant scythe on your back. Thankfully, security is so much tighter these days. Occasionally you'll participate in chariot races as well, but they're fairly standard and much more simplistic than the combat arenas. Either way, they're a nice change of pace from constantly slashing people's arms off and getting chased by tigers, which are impossible to fight from close range by the way. Unfortunately, even though the game's combat is deep and very engaging, it's also incredibly clunky. Your overall movement speed is annoyingly slow, and it gets even slower when you lock onto an enemy. When locked on, you can kinda sidestep and roll to dodge attacks, but it's very finicky and I couldn't make it work. The fact that every hit stuns you as well makes the combat more of a game of who gets stun locked first, and if someone falls to the ground, it's basically over for them. Annoyingly, weapons have durability and break after excessive use. By excessive use, I mean about 5 hits, which are certainly not enough to kill even the most basic enemy. I guess the Roman Empire didn't have the time to level up their blacksmithing. Even though the combat is clunky as hell and frustrating at times, it's visceral, engaging, and violent in a way that more than makes up for it. It perfectly portrays the brutality of gladiatorial combat. Enough about Agrippa though, what about his friend Octavianus? Well, with him, you'll enjoy forced stealth sections. Hooray! And it's not the good kind of stealth either, with multiple engaging ways of avoiding detection and solving problems. Nope, it's the kind of stealth where you painstakingly wait for a guard to turn around so you can bonk him on the head, and if you get caught, it's game over. To be fair, there are some neat ideas, like Octavianus using disguises to blend in and his silver tongue to talk his way out of trouble, but everything is so painfully slow, because the game itself forces you to be that way to avoid detection. If a guard sees you, you can hide out over a side to reset their aggro, which lasts for about 5 seconds. But if a guard catches you, that's it, game over, restart from the last checkpoint. Incredibly frustrating, since Octavianus has no fighting skills whatsoever. You have to find jugs and ropes to knock your enemies out. I get it, you don't want to make your character too powerful, because then the stealth sections would be too easy, but you could provide a few more options and ways to approach a situation. The stealth here is basically following a predetermined route with a very rigid way of accomplishing your tasks. Also, the fact that I had to constantly open the map to see my next goal and where its enemy was looking at was a total pace breaker. Granted, I was moving at a snail's pace anyway, but still, I wish I had more things to say about the stealth, but that's all really, it's simplistic and too rudimentary to be interesting. It's a nice way to progress the plot and give a player a glimpse behind the political intrigue of Rome and the corruption of the Senate, I'll give it that. It also helps that the presentation is stellar, with great graphics and music that manage to really capture the essence of ancient Rome and its splendor. Even though I enjoyed walking around Rome, talking to people, and buying useless trinkets at the market district, I didn't enjoy the stealth at all and was groaning every time Octavianus was on screen. If only these sections didn't drag on for so long and there was a greater focus on the combat, the game would be so much better for it. Shadow of Rome is a very underrated game. You're probably wondering why I think that way, since I found the combat clunky, the stealth frustrating, and the story derivative. Yes, these are all valid points, and the game would be a masterpiece if it could fix these mistakes. Even so, the game is indeed a flawed gem that manages to perfectly portray ancient Rome and its various aspects, from the political scheming to the brutality of gladiatorial combat. The story manages to be interesting despite its derivative nature. The combat is incredibly satisfying, making you feel the weight of each blow, and it's violent enough to be visceral and sometimes just straight up funny. The stealth is crap though, no real redeeming qualities there. I totally recommend you play it, but if you want to skip all the boring stuff and just play the arenas, just download a 100% save file and select the fight you want from the extras menu. And that's all I had to say about Shadow of Rome. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, leave a like if you did, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe for more stuff, you know how it goes. Have a great day, and until next time, take care and have fun.